Good evening, everyone. Welcome to tonight's meeting. We are here to discuss a proposal at 112 to 114 Queensberry Street. The proposal is Queensberry Pure seeks to site a registered marijuana dispensary at 112 to 114 Queensberry Street, Boston, Mass. 02215. We plan to work closely with Green Soul Foundation Cannabis Workforce Training Center in Massachusetts to educate, train, and employ the greater Boston residents, veterans, and members of other disproportionately impacted communities, to utilize a percentage of profits to benefit nonprofit organizations that uplift the economic, educational, and wellness needs of residents in Boston area to refresh Queensberry Streets while keeping its beloved historical character. Sorry about that. This meeting is being recorded. Please do not participate if you do not consent. The recording of the meeting will be uploaded to my ONS YouTube channel, which can be found here. I have also linked it in the chat. So my name is Shanice Pimentel. I am the Neighborhood Coordinator and Constituency Liaison for Fenway for the Office of Neighborhood Services under Mayor Marty Walsh. My email is Shanice, my first name, my last name, and that is spelled with an E-L at the end, not an A-L. at boston.gov, and my phone number is 617-635-2679. So let's go over some guidelines and agenda for participation. So the agenda will go as follows. We will have an overview of the guideline and process as we are currently doing. Then we will have a brief introduction and presentation of the proposal. After the presentation, we will open up, or I will go over the written questions that are both through the Q&A and the chat. You may use either. Following the Q&A and chat questions, we will then open the floor up to verbal feedback. The guidelines go as follows. We ask that you engage respectfully at all times. Disruptive behavior will not be allowed and you will be removed from the meeting. The applicants will present their proposal, then we will devote the remainder of the time to feedback. We encourage the use of the Q&A function unless there is an issue of accessibility or to better navigate questions, comments, or concerns. We will go through the Q&A first and then allow time for spoken feedback. Feedback will be limited to 2 minutes per person. That's only to begin. We just want to make sure that everyone has the opportunity to speak. If you have any additional feedback that you would like to provide, then we will return back to you and you will be able to do that once everyone has had the opportunity to share their thoughts. Any additional written comments that you may have may be submitted directly to me via email. After this community meeting, not a butters meeting, the Boston Cannabis Board, not ISB, will schedule a hearing date, and then they will go before the Boston Cannabis Board before proceeding on to the Zoning Board of Appeals. So a few helpful tips. When you join as an attendee, your microphone will be muted automatically and you will not have the ability to turn on your camera. The menu at the bottom of the screen will have different icons for microphone, participant, Q&A, more, and leave the event. If you can't hear, check the little phone button, or at the top in the menu section, there will be a communicate menu option. You can check that as well. To get testimony, you may raise your hand or comment in the chat, and I will unmute you. To raise your hand, open the participant information panel, which is that little blue person, and then click the hand icon in the lower right-hand corner. If you are connected by telephone, press *3 to raise your hand. You will hear 2 beeps when you're taken off mute. Then it is your turn to speak. Once your testimony is done, raise your hand again to unclick the icon. So I do ask that you guys, once you have finished your testimony, just click the raise hand feature again so that it removes the notification and I can better manage who still wants to provide testimony. Okay, lastly, we just have to go over some further rules relating to cannabis and marijuana. So as you all know, I'm here to facilitate the required public meeting for this marijuana proposal, which is again located at 112 to 114 Queensberry Street. For everyone in attendance, again, this meeting is being recorded for public record. Before I start, we just have to go over some ground rules. I know that this is a sensitive topic. I want to make clear that there are no decisions being made tonight, and at this time, it will not be acceptable to be disrespectful to anyone during the meeting. Everyone is entitled to their opinion. There is no right or wrong opinion. We are here tonight to collect as many comments and questions for this proposal. I'm not here to facilitate a debate amongst neighbors on whether or not marijuana should be legal. I ask all questions to be directed towards the applicant and myself, and that we stay on the topic of the proposal itself. I will not be discussing comments regarding the notification process. That can be discussed with me separately outside of this meeting. The applicant will answer all the questions related to the proposal to the best of their ability, and I will answer any questions that you may have that are specific to city processes. If I am unable to answer your question, or if the applicant is unable to answer your question, we are more than happy to follow up with you to get you the information that you need. This is an open comment period, meaning that if you do not get called on tonight, though I will definitely try my best to make sure that everyone has the opportunity to speak, you are more than welcome to follow up with me so that your opinion and your testimony is heard and put on record. There will be no questions during the presentation. We will allow the applicant at least 15 uninterrupted minutes to finish their presentation before we open up the floor to discussion. Again, this is not a debate on the legalization of marijuana. That debate occurred at the ballot box, and we're here today because it was overwhelmingly supported in the city. The applicant will go through the presentation in a timely manner, and the remainder of the time will be devoted to Q&A. Thank you again for joining tonight's meeting, and I'm looking forward to your participation. With that being said, I'm going to pass the floor on to the applicants and allow them to present their proposal. Thank you guys so much. And the floor is all yours, Rebecca, whenever you're ready.
We ready, Rebecca? Good evening, everybody. Thank you for attending. My name is Damon Hughes, and I'm one of the co-founders of Queensberry Pure. Next slide, please. As stated, my name is Damon Hughes, and I'm one of the co-founders of Queensberry Pure. Currently, I work as a realtor with Compass Real Estate, a real estate technology company. And I've been working in that field for quite some time now. I also manage my family's real estate portfolio. Prior to getting into real estate, I spent some time working with my family. We owned a retail liquor store in the city of Boston. I've operated that for almost 15 years as one of the owners and also as the manager. And during that time, it was also my family for over 40 years as well. So we have a lot of good ties in the community, and I hope to be able to build some similar relationships with the people in the Fenway community as well. My other partners, he's not currently on the panel today, but his name is Ahmed Laurel. He was instrumental in getting me introduced to this industry. And Ahmed has a background, he's an armed service veteran, you know. He served in the Army, and he's got an honorable discharge. He also currently works as a resident counselor for mentally adverse adults. He also is in school for life sciences and chemistry. And at this time also, I want to take this time to do a little transition and to introduce one of my other partners, Kari Milner. I have a little background with Kari as well. Prior to me getting involved with real estate and also with the liquor store, I worked in the education field. I had a privilege of working under Kari. He's a great educator, and he's a real great administrator and doing things for the community with the city of Cambridge for a long time. And I'm pleased and I'm delighted to have him a part of our team, and I think that he can bring a lot to the table as one of our directors and also our community relations person. Kari.
All right. Thank you, Damon, and good evening, everyone. So I'm Kari Milner. I'm a partner supporting and a part of this team. I am somebody who was born up the Ave at Beth Israel and raised in Cambridge. A lot of my work has been focused on community development through youth development. And as David mentioned, in recent years, I've been working a lot with school district leadership, city leadership, community leadership to think about how investing in young people and in education can support the overall betterment of our cities. And I was excited to get involved with this project to set up a model that shows that folks of color from different generations can work together and to also leverage learning in the areas of science, technology, engineering, arts, and math to support community development. I also want to highlight a key partner of ours, which is Green Soul Organics, and a foundation that they created connected to them, Green Soul Organics Foundation. In the combination of both the work of GSO and the foundation has been supporting our startup effort and has particularly supported us as a minority-led group in the cannabis world. We really fight hard to understand what it takes to break down barriers and to support more equity across our city. Specifically, the foundation that is partnering with us is supporting workforce development within this field and also to support our residents of the greater Boston area. Lastly, I'll just mention that we are hoping that this is just the beginning in terms of programs and partnerships like this that the city of Boston can benefit from. Next slide, please.
Queensberry Pure is a certified economic empowerment company that is dedicated to hold the cannabis industry to its highest standards. As a minority business pioneers of an emerging industry, our main goal is not only to achieve social and economic justice, but to set an example as how the cannabis industry should be conducted in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. Our executive management team are lifelong residents of the greater Boston area that care deeply about preserving the cultural fabric of cities like Boston and have longstanding records of helping to empower disadvantaged minorities through education and job training. We seek to lead through the excellence in operational protocol, security, compliance, education, and training, achieving economic and social justice by training and hiring Boston residents and other minority members of areas of disproportionately impacted. At this time, I want to transition to...
Excuse me. Sorry.
At this time, I want to introduce another member of our team that's going to be presenting with us tonight. Her name is Rebecca Adams. She's our compliance consultant. And Rebecca, please feel free to introduce yourself. And
thank you. And I apologize, I was muted earlier. As Damon mentioned, I am a compliance consultant assisting groups to become open as well as remain compliant. Massachusetts regulated marijuana. In November of 2016, the Adult Use Marijuana Ballot Initiative was passed. And soon after, in 2017, the Cannabis Control Commission was formed. The Cannabis Control Commission is our governing body, and they have put very stringent regulations together for dispensaries and cultivation and product manufacturing facilities within the state of Massachusetts. We will be working extremely close with the Cannabis Control Commission to make sure that we are compliant at all times. In 2018, applications became available and open for marijuana retailers within the state of Massachusetts. In July 2018, adult use was permissible. We are applying for an adult use marijuana retail license, as Shanice mentioned, at 112-114 Queensberry Street. Marijuana retailer really means that we will be providing cannabis to consumers that are 21 years of age or older. We will be purchasing our cannabis from licensed cannabis companies in the state of Massachusetts, it is illegal to purchase any cannabis outside of the state of Massachusetts from a legal entity. And together, we will make sure that we apply, cohesively through the state of Massachusetts, but also through the city of Boston. We are compliant with zoning regulations. We will be applying for a variance, from a distance from another facility. And we look forward to providing the area with legal cannabis. For our facility, there is ample parking garages and public parking within, 1 to 4 blocks within our business residence. The Green Line Kenmore station is within a mile from our facility. And we also have 6 public transit stops, 4 to 15 minutes walking distance right in the immediate area. A lot of questions usually come up regarding deliveries, so product deliveries to our facility. And those deliveries, we estimate, will take place 2 to 3 times a week. And all of the deliveries will be in vehicles that are similar to a transit van. They are small vans. There aren't any large trucks making deliveries. And those deliveries will take place in the back of the facility. Queensberry will also work with a bank to make sure that all cash pickups are, securely picked up. Those will be 2 to 3 times a week as well. And they will be randomized, obviously, to protect the public as well as employees and those transporters.
Our customer experience, we envision this place to be kind of like a boutique-style cannabis retail location where our staff can have strong ties to its customer base and also to the community as well. Next slide, please.
In regards to the boutique style, we really wanted to take the time to walk through and tell you more about the interior of the facility and how, the individuals will flow in and out of the facility. So in the middle of this slide, you'll see our drawing, and patrons will enter through the front of the facility. There's ample queuing space inside for our customers, as well as there is a booth where we will securely check identification to make sure that anyone entering the facility is 21 years of age or older. We do have 7 point-of-sale stations, which have been located to the left, if you look at the drawing, and 2 on the right-hand side. And our total occupancy would be 42 individuals. So that really means we can have up to 12 individuals in the waiting area, and in the sales floor, we can have up to 15. We do understand with COVID now, we do have restrictions, and taking into account COVID, the majority of total occupancy that we can have within the facility is 21 individuals. And so, we really are trying to make sure that the facade really will be pleasant to look at. We are adding bike racks to the front of the facility, as well as trees, and, trying to make sure that the space looks beautiful, really, to be honest with you. Product consumption is strictly prohibited. It is against the law. Signs will be placed inside and outside, to remind employees as well as consumers so there will not be any loitering and or any consumption on site.
This is an example of what we plan on to provide our customers with during the transaction process. We want them to sign off on a pledge at the end of every transaction, basically giving them, signing off that we've provided them with the necessary materials to consume cannabis, meaning that we're giving them critical material on safe consumption, dosage, storage, and also responsible consumption. A part of this pledge also, we want customers to be aware of that if customers cannot abide by the community norms, they will not be allowed to purchase in the future, and it will be reported to law enforcement. Next slide, please. Queensberry Pure success as an operator is directly correlated to our relationship with the local community. Our extensive security systems will allow us to control activities on and around our facility at all times. As a result of this heightened security around dispensaries, crime tends to drop in the surrounding neighborhood. Queensberry Pure believes that it is far easier to prevent these nuances than to correct it. Measures that we'll do will include, basically, we're going to require all customers to sign our community norms pledge. Also, there'll be extensive customer education practices. We're going to make sure that customers know exactly what they're consuming and best practices in consuming cannabis. We also want to provide 24/7 contact numbers to all local business owners and as well as residents. Next slide, please.
Great.
To go along with taking care of the community means taking care of anybody who comes into the physical space. And during COVID, that takes particular prioritization. In accordance with, again, best practices and also expectations from state and local levels, we will have ample signage throughout the facility. We will maintain the measures of folks wearing face masks and other protective gear, as well as having 6 feet of distance between everybody in all areas. The employees will be tasked with disinfecting all surfaces, including door handles, tables, countertops, throughout the day and after each transaction distribution drop. We will also be wiping down bins and other areas where inventory is kept after each delivery. Latex gloves will also be worn when distributing product. And overall, we will keep up to date and adhere to any state or local public health expectations. Next slide, please.
Great, thanks, Kari. So, security is extremely important to everyone on the team here, as well as the City of Boston and the Cannabis Control Commission. We really have formulated a 10-point security plan, and we're going to touch upon a few of those this evening. And we will make sure that we have 24-hour, 7-day-a-week video monitoring. And, the good news to that is that, we have seen that it has dropped crime rates. It has helped police officers with certain instances where they've come into dispensaries and asked to, see video footage. None of it will be intrusive to any neighbors. We will have electronic key card access throughout the facility so that we can make sure that we monitor our employees to prevent diversion of any product within the facility. We'll also have redundant power supply, to ensure that our security system doesn't fail at any point in time. And we will also make sure that we have an intrusion alarm system. So, Damon and Kari and Ahmed will be notified if for any reason any kind of alarm goes off within the facility. And as they both mentioned, they are they live close to the facility, so they can respond at any time if for any reason any alarms do go off. That being said, We do have stringent security requirements that we will be adhering to. We will be reviewing our security plan as well as our security layout with the police department, so that way we can make sure that they feel comfortable with our design as well. And we will have perimeter security. And Damon, I'm not sure if you wanted to touch upon that very quickly.
Sure. We're going to work with an individual, Frank Barbour. He is a chief at Dorchester Court. He previously was a chief also at Roxbury Court, as well as Superior Court. He's been a court officer or a chief in the court office as a court officer for over 20 years. He has a private security company that we're going to work with to basically implement our security plan, and we plan on to have his team and his staff train a lot of our in-house security. We also plan to have security 2 hours, his security company to be present 2 hours before we open and also 2 hours after we close.
Great. Thank you.
In addition to security and safety measures, we also very much want to focus on prevention and diversion to minors. As I've said a couple of times here, we think that youth are the cornerstone of our community, and we want to protect them from being influenced by any exposure to THC and to the marijuana prior to the age of 21 whenever possible. So only folks 21 years of age or older are allowed to be in the facility, and we also have strict inventory control procedures. Most importantly, I want to point out the icons that you see on the slide, which will be placed on every product that strictly and clearly communicate that these items contain THC and that they are not safe for kids. This is of utmost importance to us, and we will stay committed to this practice throughout. Next slide, please. I did want to kind of wrap by talking about the commitment to community once more. We are looking forward to being neighbors. We're looking forward to contributing positively, and we feel even more able to do that with a partner such as Green Soul Organics. We will be working with them to think about a cannabis workforce training center to educate, train, and employ Greater Boston residents to be able to work with our teams and also throughout the industry and sector. And particularly, we want to target veterans and members of disproportionately impacted communities. Damon?
Yes, thanks, Troy. Yes, and also we also plan on to utilize a percentage of our profits to benefit nonprofit organizations, especially that affect youth and people with drug abuse and education and wellness. We also want to provide a lot of support to a lot of communities and areas that have been disproportionately affected by the war on drugs throughout the Boston community. But we plan on to try to be good partners, and ultimately, we just want to be good neighbors. Next slide. And we want to thank everyone that attended today, and we look forward to some questions, and you should have a lot of answers to them.
Awesome. Thank you so much, guys. So now we're going to open the floor to the Q&A and the chat. Like I said, we're going to go through written feedback first, and then once we go through that, we will allow people to provide verbal feedback. If you wish to provide verbal feedback, just make sure you raise your hand, and once your testimony is done, make sure to click the raise hand feature again to lower your hand once again. So we did receive some comments in the Q&A, and so I'm just going to go through them briefly. So Ahmed stated, for the record, at least 4 of these garages on the map are going to be built up into apartments and offices, 3 of which are going to begin construction before the end of the year. He also stated, also, Queensberry Street is resident parking only on both sides. There's no visitor parking. And to continue, if a customer does not abide by the pledge and consumes in public in the area, will there be repercussions for Queensberry Pure. I believe you guys answered that on your slide, but if you guys want to touch on that one more time, you may.
Sure. Yes, we definitely plan on. If someone should consume in public, and we definitely will address that issue. Like I said in the slide and also in the part of the pledge, those individuals who do something like that, we don't want them in as customers. We won't support them being in that community and report them to law enforcement.
Okay.
And in regards to parking, I mean, we know that there's parking garages also around there, but there's also we want to kind of encourage a lot of our customers, especially through our advertising, to use public transit.
Okay. And that also stated, ultimately, this pledge does not provide any deterrent and doesn't look to be enforceable unless there are surveillance cameras on every building and security officers patrolling the surrounding blocks 24/7. He also stated, do you plan to apply for on-site consumption licenses, or will consider it at any point in the future?
We don't plan to have on-site consumption at that location.
Okay. So in the Q&A, JJ asked, how will the line extend outside the building if more than 12 people want to enter at one time? Will they be turned away to the neighborhood or lining up on the sidewalk?
I can address this, Damon, if you'd like me to.
Sure, you can take that, Rebecca.
Okay, great. So we will have a quick pickup line. So we're hoping, especially because of COVID right now, that a lot of people will be ordering ahead of time. We have seen at other dispensaries throughout Massachusetts that if customers order ahead, it does minimize any customer lines out front and or traffic, foot traffic in front of the store. And so we do plan on having an online system. So, we're hoping, as I'm sure you guys are as well, everyone that's listening, that COVID eventually goes away. But at this point in time, we'll make sure that we manage customers entering and exiting the facility, and we'll do our best to make sure that there aren't lines. We have seen, just so everyone knows, that as more and more dispensaries are opening within the state of Massachusetts, there really aren't lines forming out front. So we don't anticipate long lines. Plus, there are other dispensaries within the area that other individuals can go to.
Okay. JJ also asked, what will the hours of the location be? This was also mentioned in the presentation.
Okay. Yes, we plan on to be open from 10 to 9.
Okay. So, Ashley, I believe the first part of your question may have been off, but I think she's asking, can you discuss the decision to police a business on a very residential street when there are many more commercial streets in the immediate area?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that question?
It's hard to hear you.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Let me plug in my headphones. It might be easier. Is that a little better?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Can you discuss the decision to place a business on a very residential street when there are many more commercial streets in the immediate area?
Yes. Well, ultimately, this is a commercial location. So it is a commercial. It originally was a laundromat and dry cleaner. And there are businesses within that area. So so we plan on, there's restaurants, there are corner stores, there also is even a liquor store on that street. And we kind of want to we'll be able to serve a lot of the community in that capacity. So, I think that, for the most part, we feel like there are shops, and it's not like we're the only business or the only shop in town. So there are plenty of other businesses within that community as well.
Okay. Next question. Ahmed also asked, my question was if there are repercussions for businesses, not individuals consuming the product. Ahmed, I believe that is a question on the city side. Yes, there are repercussions if there is any on-site consumption. Yep. Mm-hmm. Or any deterrences from your original question. And we can definitely follow up with the Boston Cannabis Board, and I can get you more details on that if you would like. So Sean Frederick asked, with LTD frontage plus parking, disruption to the residential butters from a lengthy plus perpetual outdoor queue is one of my big concerns. With occupancy half from 42 to 21 persons during COVID, how many customers versus staff could you accommodate indoors today?
Damon, would you like me to take that?
Yeah, if you could, Rebecca.
Yeah, absolutely. So Sean, our architect, unfortunately was not able to be on the call, so taking that role over. And as of today, to answer your question, how many customers versus staff could you accommodate indoors today? So we could accommodate up to, I just have to do the numbers here, if you just bear with me for one quick second. So we could have 11 at this time, with COVID, obviously, right now. And that's a rough number, obviously, based upon the total occupancy that was given by the architect. As far as your second concern, I believe with limited frontage and parking and lengthy and perpetual outdoor queues, again, as a company, Damon and Kari have made some strides to try to encourage all customers coming to the facility to take public transportation. It is a city, and we do feel that we will have a lot of people that will be taking public transportation and or walking to and from our facility. If for any reason there is a line, God forbid, we would obviously make sure that they're not lingering outside on the sidewalk. We can formulate the line on the side of the building, worst case scenario. However, we do not feel that we will have a long line based on the number of dispensaries that are open in the state of Massachusetts. I hope that answered your question.
Okay. Next. Ruth Co-Wise, again, guys, I'm so sorry if I'm mispronouncing anybody's name. Traffic and parking are issues of concern in the Fenway. We already have a lot of traffic and very little parking. You say there is on-street parking, but that is resident parking. And that is a comment if you guys wish to address that.
As stated before, I think we're going to really try to encourage people to use public transit. And basically, if they do, pretty much, try to use a parking lot and try to, but for the most part, we're really going to try to encourage people to use public transit for the most part, or if they can find a meter.
Okay. Erica Bernstein asked, have you done a traffic study to formally, I believe she meant to say, evaluate the traffic? Oh, lost the question. Have you done a traffic study to formally evaluate the traffic impact? The neighborhood is already overwhelmed with Red Sox and concert traffic and residents struggle.
No, unfortunately, we have not done.
Sorry.
Oh, sorry, Shanice.
It's okay. I lose the question every time somebody sends a new one.
I get it. We have not done a formal traffic study. There are 2 other dispensaries, on the other side of Fenway. Again, we do not feel that we will be enticing a lot of people to drive to our facility. And as Damon has mentioned, now that, we will be encouraging people to take public transportation.
Okay. Allison Mopet asked, would like to get a better understanding of why it is you wish to open this business in a residential community neighborhood versus Boylston, Brookline Street, etc. As Kristen noted, this is a residential neighborhood.
Yeah, it's zoned. The facility is actually zoned for a commercial building. I believe Damon, you can talk more about that, but I believe you did mention that previously.
Mm-hmm. And it is zoned for cannabis use, so it's conditional use for cannabis. I think that also I got certification for economic empowerment in May of 2018, and even as a realtor, it's been a challenge for me to find locations. Even using some of my contacts, working with one of the best real estate companies in the country, Compass, I've hit roadblocks. The barriers to entry in this industry are tremendous. So it's not like I can pick and choose locations. A lot of landlords won't rent to cannabis applicants, and a lot of times, due to me being a person of color, I've had challenges even getting a landlord to accept or even consider renting to me. So I'm fortunate that this landlord has been willing to work with us, granted us a lease, and has been patient with us throughout this entire process.
Okay. Dolores Bogdanian asked, why are you seeking variance for the required half-mile distance from a nearest dispensary? Where is or are there others?
Damon, do you want to take it or would you like me to?
I could take it. For the most part, okay. We have MedMen that's on Brookline Ave, and there's, I believe, Cask and Flagon has also received a host community agreement, I believe, at their location. So there's 2 over there, close to Fenway, and actually really close to the ballpark. So that's why we have to apply for a variance. But being an economic empowerment group, we usually are allowed to break the buffer because of the challenges that we have in finding locations.
Okay. Let's see. Greg Salco asked, my question for the city is how many liquor licenses to beer and wine licenses are there in the area of 0.5 mile radius? I say this as a supporter of the proposal, as cannabis retailers generally have few or no incidents of disruption compared to bars and other establishments that sell liquor. He continues, which have gone in easily. Sorry, lost the question. Which have gone in easily because liquor has been legal for many years, and this is a new thing, which often creates fear around it. Greg, I'm happy to follow up with you to get you that information. We will have to connect with the licensing board for more detailed information on that ratio that you're looking for. Okay. So Ashley Medlar asks, I think public transportation will be critical, especially during red stock season and events. And then I'm going to just read through the comments that have been made that aren't necessarily questions. If you guys wish to respond to them or provide any feedback, just let me know. W. Knapp Brown states, there's a large front patio-like space in front of the building that allows for people to be in front and not block the sidewalk. The laundromat and store there previously for decades brought about the same amount of people, if not more, for years. And then Allison, I believe she was expanding on her original comment on the fact that this is a residential neighborhood. She states, yes, it is zoned for commercial use, yet it is a neighborhood. Greg Selko again asks, also my question to panelists, can they talk a little bit more about the community benefits and the disproportionate impact that the war on drugs has had on communities of color and the ability to help give back to the community?
Kari, you feel like taking that?
Sure. Thank you. And Greg for the question. So I think it's well documented that the so-called war on drugs has really been a war on the Black and brown community at times. The number of folks who've been incarcerated or involved with the criminal justice system has been overwhelmingly out of proportion, particularly for Black and brown men, which has impacted communities and family units across the state, across the country, across our city. And this is a reason why, or one of the reasons why, a program or an approach such as the economic empowerment zones has been put together. It is trying to create more equitable conditions, but it doesn't guarantee anything in terms of whether an establishment will be successful. What it is allowing us to do is to highlight that there needs to be more attention paid to what it takes for folks of color to be able to establish businesses and in this case dispensaries in our communities. And then once that happens, if there are returns, that we are reinvesting in our community. And so I understand definitely a lot of concerns about, a new establishment in a community. We are a mission-driven business, if you will, such that we will be putting the proceeds, a portion of them, right back into the community in a very positive way, in a very deliberate way. I would also just mention that we know that there are different events and different happenings in every neighborhood. This is a particular one that has, the entertainment and sports, and that it's important that all the businesses in this area to work together to make sure that we are responsible and taking care of patrons and taking care of the community, but most importantly, keeping it safe for the community in which we reside.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to go through a few more comments from folks that we haven't heard from yet, and then I do see that a lot of the same folks are asking a lot of questions, so we're actually going to give an opportunity for those that have been waiting very patiently to give verbal feedback, and then we will go back to the written questions, okay? So Steve Wolf asked, one second, lost this question. Okay, would the proponents consider adopting different measures during hours of games or very disruptive concerts at Fenway Park?
Yes, I think we would consider that. I know that some of the other, I believe MedMed has, and we would consider that. We would consider that.
Okay, and then to expand on that question, he also asked, would the proponents consider adopting different measures like reservations or notification by app when orders are ready during hours of games and disruptive concerts at Fenway Park?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that is part of our plan, to have an online ordering system, where it can text message people so that they can shop, grab a coffee around the corner, and then come pick up their order. So we definitely will be implementing, that type of service, for our consumers.
Okay. Steve Chavone, sorry if I'm mispronouncing that. I do not have a question, but I wanted to say that the presentation was great and your team seems to have done all their homework, and I look forward to visiting your dispensary when you are open. Good luck.
Thank you.
Kathleen McBride asks, as a long-term resident, we in the Fenway carry a large burden when Red Sox are in town and 38,000 people come into the neighborhood. These people will know there is a cannabis shop and could potentially clog our residential streets and imbibe. Yeah, that's the whole question.
Just need to Can you just say it one more time? You said it really fast.
Sorry. Okay, I tend to do that.
Okay.
She states, as a long-term resident, we in the Fenway carry a large burden when Red Sox are in town and 38,000 people come into the neighborhood. These people will know there is a cannabis shop and could potentially clog our residential streets and imbibe.
So I'm not sure if I understand the question. However, you know, as we mentioned, there are additional cannabis stores in Boston, as well as there will be closer, actually, to Fenway.
Okay, perfect. And then Kristen Mobilia, I'm seeing that you did ask some questions, but it started with the number 5 and 6. I'm not sure if you had other questions that you wanted to ask, but I'm going to just go over the ones that I see here. So it's like she states number 5, have you met with all of the abutters to understand the direct impact? 6, there is a densely populated residential neighborhood. You say that you are neighborhood guys. Would you push for this location and not on Boylston Street?
Okay. So Damon, do you want me to take it, or do you want to? It's up to you.
I'll take a portion of it, and if any of you guys want to chime in. As far as to Boylston Street, we weren't provided with an opportunity to rent anything on Boylston Street, so we don't have that option. And also in regards to, we understand that it's that quote unquote residential area, but there are also other businesses in the area as well. So we want to be treated like potentially some of the other businesses. And I think that there is a lot of hysteria surrounded around cannabis. And I think that by the time we should potentially open, I think it will be more normalized, and we should be able to operate similar to our plan to be a boutique and operate similar to like how a liquor store would operate. We don't anticipate having long lines. We don't anticipate impeding traffic and stuff, and we think that we can operate within the community without being some type of burden or hindrance to the community. I'm positive that we're not going to impact the community in a negative way. And if we are, I mean, we're going to be present. I mean, I'm going to be an on-hands operator. My team is going to be on hands. You know, you're not talking to a big cannabis company that's a multi-state operator. You're talking to guys that are local, that are in the community, and that have ultimately, a person like myself who has done this before.
Right, and just to circle back to Damon, to Kristen's question, you know, we did reach out to the Fenway Civic Association. We asked them to post the notice on their website as well, and unfortunately we didn't hear back anything from the association, but we were trying to reach out, and that's why we're having our community outreach meeting, so that we can, you know, listen to all your questions and comments and try and address them, you know, and make sure that you know really what our plans are.
Yes, and I also have reached out to the CDC as well, the Fenway CDC, on multiple occasions to try to, you know, meet with them in ways that, you know, that we can help them in different charitable aspects, and, you know, and be able to assist them in some of the programs that they have.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we did just receive the rest of Kristen's questions. So one, she states how many attendees are on this call. Are there any elected officials? So I do see that there are currently 41 attendees, 46 total participants. I'm not sure, haven't looked completely through to see representatives of other elected officials. I do know that Lauren is here from Councilor Bach's office. Did I hear correctly that you need to apply for a variance at this location? Would be too close to another dispensary? If so, that is an absolute non-starter. 3, she states the Queensberry location is just yards away from a well-used park, part of the Emerald Necklace, and a beloved neighborhood pocket park, Rambler Park. How will you ensure that both of those locations stay smoke-free and do not become a using area? Yes, go ahead.
Sorry, so I can take the variance question and the park question, and then if you guys want to jump in, feel free. The variance comment that I made was because the city of Boston does require marijuana dispensaries to be a certain distance apart from each other. As Damon mentioned, they are an economic empowerment applicant, and so therefore that buffer is not applicable to the company, Queensberry Company. So I apologize that I mentioned that. I was incorrect when I stated it. And so that is the variance question. The second one was the park. We are far enough away from the park per the zoning requirements to be compliant with the city of Boston. And again, I believe we did talk about and address the on-site consumption. It is illegal. And so if you're ever in the park and you see someone consuming, you should definitely notify the authorities. We can only do our best to make sure that we minimize, what happens around our store.
Okay, and her
Hey,
fourth
Rebecca.
question.
Hi, how you doing? This is Taba from Green Soul Organics. One thing to note is that MedMen and the Caskin Flagon are probably a couple hundred feet away from each other, and they've both been awarded HCAs by the city of Boston. So the Queensberry Pure location is almost a quarter mile. It's not quite, but it's not too far from a quarter mile away from the actual Caskin Flagon and from the MedMen store. So if you look at the locations that have been approved, if you add Queensberry Pure into it, they're the farthest away from any of the other two locations.
Great. Thanks, Taba, for the clarification. I appreciate it.
Thank you. And then her fourth question was, what is the ownership of Green Soul Organics? I couldn't find much information online regarding the company, other than that it is funded by MedMen that has a very questionable business practices. Please elaborate on the relationship and the organization.
I can speak to that. So we're not funded by MedMen. MedMen donated money to Green Soul Organics to basically create best practices around working with the community. Since then, they've gone through issues, and their company has changed, and they reworked it. They were actually awarded an HCA, and they've been given a license by the state to actually open. What MedMen did, they gave us $500,000. We, in turn, used that money to create a workforce development program and a technical assistance program. GSO itself has been working with Damon Hughes and his company for about 2 years from beginning to end, getting him to the point where he is ahead of the curve, ready to open, knowledgeable about the cannabis business, work with him to secure a lease, provide him with lawyers and architects, and really help him get what would be considered for someone who comes from the city of Boston and who grew up in Boston, a prime location, right? If you look at all the black men and women who've been trying to apply and have licenses, Damon's company is 100% owned by minorities, and it's in Fenway, which will allow him to possibly be a successful business, right? The first place that was opened that's a minority-owned company is in Grove Hall, right? Grove Hall, great neighborhood, not a prime location, right? So one of the issues around real equity in Boston and in cannabis around the country and the state of Massachusetts is allowing local black businesses and black business owners to be in prime shopping districts and commercial districts, which Fenway is one of them. So the money that was taken from MedMen that was given to us has been used to help people like Damon, so that's a positive thing. In terms of our company itself, GSO is 100% minority owned.
Okay. So thank you guys for those comments. We're now going to give folks the opportunity that has been waiting very patiently to state or to give some verbal feedback. So I'm just going to go in the order that I see them in. I'm going to call your name, so please say your name and address for the record. Again, we are limiting the testimony to 2 minutes. There are still a ton of questions that I would like to get to in the chat and the Q&A. So if you can just make sure that your testimony is concise, that would be great. And once your testimony is done, I will mute you once again. So we're going to begin with Alex. Hey, Alex, can you hear us?
Hey, guys. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Pretty good. Thanks a lot for letting us comment.
Absolutely. Can you say your name and address for the record, please?
Yeah, my name is Alex Sauchinetz. I'm at 150 Brookline. I'm on the board of the Fenway.
I think you broke up a little bit there.
Oh, I apologize. It seems like a couple of people have broken up here and there throughout the presentation. I'm Alex Sauchinetz. I'm at 150 Brookline, and I'm a board member of the Fenway Civic Association.
Thank you.
I guess I just wanted to start by saying, you know, I think you guys have a great presentation. I think you guys have a great business model, and I applaud a lot of what you guys are doing. The idea of a minority-owned, you know, economically disadvantaged, try to organic source dispensary in the neighborhood, a lot of that appeals to me. Frankly, if you guys were going in, say, where MedMen is going, or where, like, Cypress Tree is going on Boylston Street, I think I would be able to support this wholeheartedly. But unfortunately, the location that you guys have chosen is an extremely poor choice for the neighborhood. So I think my opposition to this is mostly two-pronged. The first part of it is about the process as a whole that the city and state have been running. Fenway currently is absolutely inundated with proposals that are all proceeding simultaneously, despite the fact that the dispensaries are supposed to be half a mile away from each other. And additionally, the other piece that this proposal in particular violates is that dispensaries are also supposed to be at least a quarter mile away from schools. And a lot of the proposed dispensaries, including this one, also violate that rule. So the fact that these proposals are all proceeding at the same time has been extremely frustrating for Fenway Civic to follow. We've been following all of these proposals for close to 2 years now. And I think the fact that I'm not even sure we were aware that MedMen and the site at Cask and Flagon got HCAs already is very indicative of the fact that this whole thing has been really opaque and frustrating to follow. So that's a major prong of this. So, I mean, truthfully, I'm not really sure why we should be granting a variance here when the whole point of the rules is just to be avoiding density of these of dispensaries and these types of businesses.
Okay.
So,
sorry.
Well, so I mean, just if you wouldn't mind a moment more, it's just the other prong of my objection is about the location itself, and a lot of people have already brought this up in the Q&A. I really have to mention it as well. Queensberry Street is not well suited for a business like this at all. There was mention of parking nearby. It is in very short supply. All of the directly abutting streets are resident-only parking. People are going to take these resident spots. People are going to have to queue outside directly under all of the residential buildings that are right nearby. I do not think it is an equal comparison to compare this to the laundromat that was previously there. So, I mean, I apologize that you guys have found difficulties trying to find a location, but that does not mean that this is the right spot for this neighborhood. So, I'll let some other people talk as well, but I really want all those points to be well heard.
Okay, thank you, Alex. I'm going to mute you now. And then you guys may respond if you wish.
Well, one thing I'd just like to respond to, this is Taba. So just to correct you regarding distance. So, yes, there's a quarter mile away from other existing dispensaries, which is an exclusion, there's an exclusion for economic empowerment where you can apply for a variance. I'd like to state again that MedMen and the Cask and Flagon are closer to each other in perspective than Queensberry is to either of the two. And then as far as schools go, it's not a quarter mile away from a school, it's 500 feet away from a school, K through 12. But Alex, I appreciate your comments and concerns. And I just say that we want the community to look at it as us being good neighbors and helping revive the community, right? There's a bunch of small businesses on those streets that if people park over on the other side of Fenway, which historically I look at Fenway as a place where people park and walk around, right? I don't see a lot of people driving around Fenway. The only time I see a lot of traffic is at a Fenway Park game, and people are driving to the game and finding a place to park and going to the game. Other than that, growing up in Boston and Cambridge, basically all my life, I frequented Fenway and other places around the city. I look at that as a walking shopping district where people like to walk around and shop. I think that Queensberry Pure can implement new technology that will allow people to do more online ordering than just coming and walking to the store, which will also encourage people to go spend money at other businesses while they're waiting to get their package, right? And this isn't a place where people consume, so you get your package and then you go about your way.
Okay, thank you. Next, we're going to go ahead and unmute Marie Sakuda. Hey, Marie, can you hear us?
I can hear you.
Sorry, Marie, we have really bad echo coming from your side.
Is that? Any better or no? Shanice, we can hear you. Shanice, you're muted.
You're muted.
Hi, I see somebody with the name J.S. would like to provide verbal testimony. Hey, can you hear us?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yeah, can you say your name and address for the record, please?
My name is Jay. I live in West Fenway. And so I had a few different questions. The first one was I wanted to know whether or not any of the founders had reached out to the people who run K Street and or if you're familiar with it.
No, we have not.
Okay, so K Street is within a block of your proposed dispensary, and all the folks who are there are in recovery for substance use. And I'm wondering specifically if you're able to reach out to them and what their thoughts are about your proposed location. That's one of the questions. The second question I had was, where are all the owners, where do you all actually live, and the people who are financing this? And why are you not creating a dispensary where you live?
Me personally, most of our group pretty much makes up of people that live in Boston. I live in Boston. Two of my other partners live in Boston. Kari lives in Cambridge. Taba Moses, who's been working with us, he actually lives in Boston as well. I live in Hyde Park. But I think that for the most part, we wanted to go into communities that we consider the Fenway as pretty much that business district as a prime location. So that is one of our reasons why we identified that to open up. We didn't want to be regulated to have to be in certain communities or in servicing, certain quote unquote demographics. So, I think that ideally we wanted to try to be able to put ourselves in the best locations and try to be in the best parts. Not to say that where I live isn't a great location, but ultimately it was a dream of mine to try to open up something. I'm a Red Sox fan. I think Fenway Park is a great location. And I felt like when the opportunity presented itself, I said, sure, why don't I take advantage of it?
I'd just like to add to that. I think one thing to look at, I appreciate your question, is that if you took the time to research where everyone lives that is currently open, whether it's medical, recreational, or has a host community agreement, isn't necessarily in the community where they're doing business. And then if you look at businesses in general, right, whether it's the Guest store, the Nike store, all the stores, Wahlburgers, right? Wahlburgers is a business owned by Mark and his brother. They don't live in Boston. They don't live in Fenway. So we are Boston residents. No, we don't live in Fenway, but there's a million businesses where people actually don't live where they do business, right? They wake up, they go to their place of business, they work, and then they go home. So in terms of that, we look at this cannabis business in the same light as you look at any other business.
Okay, thank you. And I think Marie was able to solve the issue she was having. So we're going to go ahead and call on her again. I just want to state that we are under the 45-minute mark at this point. So it's extremely important. I am going to be keeping time. And unfortunately, I'm going to have to cut the verbal testimony to 2 minutes. There are tons and tons of questions. We're just under 50 participants at the height of this meeting. And we really need to be mindful of each other's times and considerate of everybody that wants to speak. With that being said, let's go ahead and unmute Marie. Hey, Marie, can you hear us?
Hi, yes, is this better?
Yes, much better. Thank you. And can you just say your name and address for the record, please?
Sure. My name is Marie Sakuda. I'm an East Fenway resident on Norway Street. And I'm joining this because although I really do appreciate the need to integrate equity into the dispensary process, I think that and have supported that as a member of Fenway Civic and in fact requested that and like to think that that led to some of the changes that we saw at the BCC level, that what's happening for us in the Fenway is everyone is looking at this neighborhood as being the lucrative place. We are 1.4 miles only in size. We have 4 applicants coming forward already, 3 within half a mile of one another. We have no control over whether it's 1 applicant or 2 applicant or whether Cask and Flagon and MedMen is close together or whether an economic empowerment waiver will give you the ability to have an additional location. But the question is, yes, we voted to have dispensaries in Boston, but what is the need? What is the appropriateness? And when you look at the location, and I'm sorry that there aren't enough places to provide you with alternatives, but this is a highly residential one-way street. I think that Article 66 actually has it under multifamily residential, and there might be a grandfathered commercial use, but I could be wrong. But I think, these things are problematic to the community, not necessarily strike against this application and proposal, but I think it's a question of fairness of what this neighborhood deserves. I guess I'd say in terms of your proposal, the workforce development and the nonprofit sounds great. Consumption pledge sounds fine, although I don't know how you can enforce that. I think that maybe you should look a little bit more at the local nonprofits and the local opportunities to support. There's a halfway house called Brook House, which is run by Community Resources for Justice. It's kind of a place where men that are re-entering after doing service can kind of transition, and it is always in need of support. So when I hear that nonprofits are being identified, I'm really surprised that you're not looking at what is needed right in the area. I guess my question is also includes single joint sales and whether that's something that you plan to ban given the proximity to the entertainment uses at Fenway Park.
Okay, thank you, Marie. I'm going to mute you.
Damon, would you like me to take it, or are you going to?
I mean, we could do it together. If you want to start, sure. I'll chime in after.
Okay, absolutely, sure. So, thank you for your comments, Marie, and your concerns. Unfortunately, we can't control how many dispensaries the city will allow and where they'll allow them. So we do appreciate that, you're just stating that concern. In regards to the single joints, yes, we can't say that we won't sell them. We don't have a product line yet, but cannabis is legal to everyone that's 21 years and older. And so, we have not selected what products we will be selling at this point. I believe those were the only statements and questions, unless I'm incorrect.
Okay.
One of the things, can I jump in real quick? Could you give us
Absolutely.
the name of the place you recommended again? We're 100% committed to try and give people second chances. I believe in second chances. Damon does. So if you could give us that information again, we'd love to reach out and see if there's a way we could partner with them and help people turn their lives around.
Okay, and I can connect with Maria and we can follow up on that and get that information to you guys, okay?
Thank you.
Thank you, Shanice.
Absolutely. Next, we're going to go to Tim Horn. So again, keep your testimony under 2 minutes. Just do want to make it clear this meeting will end promptly at 8 p.m. Any questions that are unanswered, you can follow up with me, and I will be more than happy to connect you with the applicant to get you the information that you need. So we're going to go ahead and go to Tim Horn. Hey, Tim, can you hear us? Hey, Tim, can you hear us?
Yeah, I got unmuted. Thank you.
Oh, okay, perfect. Can you say your name and address for the record? And again, your testimony, try to keep it under 2 minutes.
That's going to be hard, but my name is Tim Horn, 120 Norway Street, number 14, 02115. So if anybody knows anything about Fenway zoning, you realize that we created a zoning plan that created an entertainment district north of Boylston Street. And south of Boylston Street was supposed to be reserved and kind of blocked off from entertainment uses. So as the Fenway Civic Association president, we have worked for 2 decades now to enforce our zoning. And that zoning means that we do not allow liquor stores on that side of the street. We allowed a liquor store to move back to an old location after 30 years, and that's why we have a liquor store on that side of the street. We have not allowed any live entertainment licenses. We've fought all of those kinds of uses. And if you look at our zoning plan, this is not actually set up to ever be again a commercial building. It was made to be redeveloped. That's why our zoning exists. It's forbidden for it to even be a laundry again. It's not supposed to be a commercial use. It's supposed to be redeveloped for housing. That's what this area of the Fenway is about. So I'll let the zoning issue go. And if you want to get to small details, the fact is that most of your customers are going to be arriving by Uber. There's no place on that street for an Uber to pull over. There's no spaces for it, and we're going to have Ubers just parking in the middle of the street, dropping off passengers or picking them up. That's a huge issue. But you got to get back to the first one, is that this is illegal in our zoning. It's not supposed to happen. This building is supposed to be residential housing. It's supposed to be redeveloped. That's what this area is about. It's not about more businesses. It's not. We do have Restaurant Row, and we support all those owners. However, not redeveloping this parcel is just against everything that we worked for so many years. And this was a community zoning process that was a complete consensus. Everybody agreed upon what the results were. We all agreed that this area should be residential. That is why it is a forbidden use for this even to be used as a laundromat again. It's not supposed to be reused as any kind of retail establishment. We need housing. This is the Fenway. We need middle-class housing for real people that have normal jobs, that are not extraordinarily wealthy. We need housing on this site. We don't need another development, another commercial development. And while I'm there,
Hey, Tim, sorry to interrupt you.
I'm sorry, Shanice. It's just there's too many questions.
I totally understand, but
and I have knowledge that most people do not.
no, I totally understand, but we really need to allow everybody the
I
opportunity.
get that, but the problem is that Compass Real Estate also took over property on Boylston Street at 1171 or something like that, and it was supposed to be housing for the people. Instead, it became corporate housing. So I have real problems with Compass management and everything they've ever done in my neighborhood, and that's a true problem. And you have to realize we have been through a bunch of junk, and right now you guys are like saying we have 1.4 miles despite all the laws. We could look at having 5 dispensaries in the Fenway, 1.4 miles. That is very, very disturbing. It seems like people want to come to the Fenway. They do this with the DCR parking. Everybody wants to come to the Fenway. They want to take money out of the Fenway, and they want to move it into other neighborhoods. And honestly, that just can't work.
Tim, I'm going to have to cut you off. You've gone well.
Okay.
You have gone well over 5 minutes. I'm so sorry.
That we can't actually speak out and talk this through.
I totally understand, but we're limited to 2 hours. We have to be respectful and mindful to everybody that wants to participate.
I get that.
You've gone well over 5 minutes at this point.
You spent a lot of time on questions that were written far.
I totally understand.
So
I totally understand. The process is still open. I'm going to mute you now, Tim. Thank you. I really want to make it explicitly clear to everybody, you must stay under the 2 minutes mark at this point. I will allow a little bit of time, but it is not acceptable to go over 5 minutes when there are people that still want to participate. Moving along, we're going to allow W. North Brown to speak. Hey, W. North Brown, can you hear us?
Yes, I can. How are you?
Good. How are you? Can you please say your name and address? And again, keep your testimony under 2 minutes. I will begin to mute people at this point.
Yes, my name is Mr. Brown. I'm at 907 Boylston Street. I don't know. I hear somebody. I think Taba's mic is on. At 907 Boylston Street, 02115. I've also done color guard for BC in the area. BU is also at Fenway Park. I've marched in a ton of different parades in the area. My father used to live right across the street from the basketball court, so I grew up in Fenway. I know about 3 doctors that live on Peterborough Street in Landmark Building, and I went there for years. I've been in that area so much. I've also done a ton of concerts on Lansdowne Street as well. I've always loved this area. The baseball tavern is where I did one of my birthday parties. I've loved this area, and let's be clear about this area. This is the haves area, and the Equal Opportunity Applicant Program was created to lessen that financial divide between the have and have not, and to say things to literally stop an applicant that represents the opportunity for this neighborhood that's widely the haves, as I said, to allow this type of much needed social justice that we all can be proud that Boston is leading the way in. It seems like a very much a miss. We know that Church Boston, they brought a lot of people from Fenway Park that they sold alcohol, and we know that the alcohol community is bigger than the cannabis community. And let's be very clear: the cannabis community that buys from a dispensary, those aren't the people that go and just light up in the park. They're not going to pay a premium and then light up in the park. Those people that are paying the premium are those doctors that I know that are for it. I have a list of 112 people in the area that want the dispensary there, and I do not smoke marijuana. I have been teased by my friends for years. I am not a marijuana smoker. Okay, my dentist smokes marijuana. I do not. Okay, but I do know that there are elderly people there that do want it easily available to them. And we talk about these other dispensaries that we don't know that existed. Obviously, they're not bringing enough of a problem in the area for it to be noticeable. That's because of the type of people that go to dispensaries. And if anything, if Queensberry Pure is the only one that's coming to the community, wanting to talk to the community, they're the ones that deserve to be there. I've known Damon for some time now when his family owned a liquor store. He's done things to help so many people in that community.
That's the 2-minute mark. Can you wrap up your comment, please?
Yes, and I'm just saying that just the way that they're coming to the community, I think that should make everyone feel like they'll do the right thing with the community. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And if you guys wish to respond, you may.
No, thank you.
Okay, next we're going to go to Frederica Bikely. Hey, Frederica, can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you. Hope you can hear me.
We can hear you. Can you say your name and address for the record? And again, keep your testimony concise and under 2 minutes.
Right. Frederica Bikely. I'm a Park Drive resident, half a block away from the proposed site. My comments and questions are a little two-part. One of them is procedural, because I'm a procedural wonk, but I did not see the posting on the hearings and community meetings that's required prior to the public meeting. I didn't see it posted on the hearings and communities meetings on the website, the city's website. I'd also want to question whether there was legal notice placed in the Herald and the Boston Sun. And as a resident that's well within 300 feet of the proposed site, I did not get a notice of the meeting. So those three things are procedural wonks. And then I'm going to the open space thing because it's a huge, huge issue. And it gets overlooked because it's so indistinct, and what happens in open spaces is really basically unenforceable when it comes to smoking. In fact, our own Parks Commissioner has expressed some displeasure and frustration that so many of the pot shops that are being located in Boston are in close proximity to Boston public parks. Someone mentioned something about it being within the specs for distance from public parks. I did not know that exists, and I think that's one of the frustrating things. And I think there's a limitation within schools. So could you clarify if there is actually a limitation, a distance from a Boston public park in the legislation? And as an overseer of Rambler Park, I realize, which is obviously non-smoking, it's posted very clearly non-smoking. And the City of Boston parks all are non-smoking. There is a parking ordinance, there is a smoking ordinance that was passed that makes all of them non-smoking. You and I know that anyone who leaves a cannabis establishment with a stash of the ability to light up something is going to go to the most bucolic place to go sit and smoke.
That's Frederica. Sorry, could you just wrap up your comment?
Yeah, this is unenforceable. And you say that it's going to be, well, we're going to, not serve them again or not let them buy again if they're, deemed to have been smoking the product wherever it's not allowed. But, the Back Bay fence, which is very close, is not even a half block down the street, is big. There's no way to enforce that. Rambler Park, well, if you're in there between the operating hours of your business every day, well, that's a different story, and that would be, just terrific. But there's really, in reality, no way to enforce that. And I think this is a poor location. The proximity to the public parks is...
That's 3 minutes, Frederica.
That's it, and some answers to those other questions.
Thank you.
Sure. So let's start with the parks. There are no requirements for zoning with parks of the City of Boston. For your procedural questions, it was posted on the city's website. I have an actual email from the city stating that it was posted, and I downloaded that posting from the site.
Actually, Rebecca, sorry, I'm just going to interrupt you. We're not going to answer any questions about the notification process. I'll touch on it a little bit later. Yeah, but if you could just focus on
I forgot.
Don't worry about it. I totally understand.
I believe we answered her question about the parks, and you're going to answer the procedural one, so we're set.
Yeah, so I actually did take a quick look. They did follow the instructions. There was a public notice, and actually applicants are required to send me documentation of proper notification process and proper requirements for, especially for cannabis, to monitor that very closely. If you guys have any concerns with that, please feel free to follow up with me, but we will not have the applicants address those questions at this meeting. Okay, moving right along. I see Cecilia Steve. Hey, Cecilia, can you hear us?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
We can hear you. Can you say your name and address for the record? And again, please keep your testimony under 2 minutes.
Yeah, thank you. So my name is Cecilia Estevez. I live on Park Drive, adjacent to the proposed site. And I just wanted to express my agreement with Frederica and Tom. I really just feel very strongly that this part of the Fenway neighborhood is not appropriate for a commercial use of a building. The proximity to the park. I'm specifically concerned about the fact that this is a one-way street, and the only place that people would be waiting in line would be directly under residential units. I think I'm not against this coming to Fenway. I really am in support of having this type of business in Fenway. I just really feel very strongly that this specific location is not the right place. And as a resident, I'm adjacent, because right when I walk out my alley, I'll be bumping into people in line, and I'm just really concerned and just feel very strongly and wanted to just voice my agreement with the others that this part of the neighborhood, this is not the right match for them. And that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Cecilia. I'm going to mute you now. I really appreciate you keeping your comments under 2 minutes, okay?
Thank you for sharing your concerns.
Thank you.
Okay. Next, we're going to go to Kristen Mobilia. Hey, Kristen, can you hear us?
Yes, can you hear me?
We can hear you. Can you say your name and address for the record? And again, keep your testimony under 2 minutes.
Sure. Kristen Mobilia. I'm at on Park Drive in the Fenway. And I did have some questions earlier, but a couple are just responding to a couple of comments that were made by those who are answering questions from the applicant side. I haven't heard the phrases, we can't control, we're not responsible for. Those phrases are very similar to our friends at the Red Sox organization. And that's why, when you mention the Red Sox, it sounds maybe like a good idea from your perspective, but it's not such a great idea from the resident perspective. We've been bulldozed, and often they have concerts and other things. And they're like, well, we're going to have them, and you guys take care of the fallout from it. So that sounds a lot like the same things that you've said. So I just wanted to let you know that perspective. The second thing is a gentleman who came on earlier. He said that the Fenway are the haves. I'd just like you to know that, our median household income is as low as $10,000 and as high as $53,000 for a household income. We are not the haves. A lot of people who are on this call right now were out in the rain today handing out food to those who are food insecure. So I just want to set the record straight on both of those fronts because it's just so important that we are not just this money-making machine, this neighborhood who's just for everyone to come in and just make money. And I understand, like others have said, I think you have a great business plan. I wholly get behind it. This is not the location. And I just can't say that enough. And I echo my neighbors who've spoken earlier. It's really not the right place. And I wish you the best. And I hope you'll get a location, but I hope it's not this one.
Thank you so much, Kristen. And I really appreciate you keeping your comments under 2 minutes.
Okay. Well, thank you, Kristen. Obviously, we want to make sure that you understand that we definitely don't want to railroad anyone or bulldoze anyone with, who we are as a company. I'm speaking on behalf of Damon and his group, obviously, but I know these guys. I've worked with them, and if anything, they care about the community and the neighborhood, that they're in. I'm not sure, Damon or Kari or Taba, if you guys want to speak up and address Kristen's concerns.
I can jump in, and Damon, you can follow up. I understand what you're saying about household medium income. Historically, if you compare Fenway to any neighborhood, we can go to Mattapan, we can go to Cobbin Square, we can go to Roxbury, we can go to JP, right? So JP has Academy Homes, JP has Heat Street. It's not the same life. It's not the same lifestyle. And the median income and the disparities and the challenges are completely different. So I don't want to get into the haves and have-nots, but in order to live in Fenway, that means that you're basically a successful person that can afford to pay top dollar for rent. As far as food insecurity goes and working with the community, I really appreciate and respect that. Damon, myself, and a group of other people, we did a turkey drive last year. We raised the money on our own. We're actually looking to raise $30,000 this year, and we'll be giving out turkeys in 7 locations, right, to families that are dealing with food insecurities, and we're looking at possibly 3,000 turkeys. So that includes Dorchester, Roxbury, Mattapan, Somerville, Cambridge, real families in need. So I think that Damon's group, along with Green Soul and the people he's connected with, are the only groups that are really supporting these issues that you guys say you're concerned about, right, and that you also support. And I'd hope that you look at us as a viable boutique business in an area that is sustainable. So it's not about making millions of dollars. I think Fenway is a sustainable business district, right? And those are the types of places we want to do business in. And the last thing I would like to say, I see a lot of opposition from the civic group. I would just like to know if you guys supported any other groups, right, and why you supported them, because I think that's important, right? I think Damon's group is the only 100% minority-owned group in all of Fenway to date, right? And it took a lot to get that place, and the place is conditional use. And I hear a lot of opposition from the Civic Association, but I'd like to know whether or not you guys supported other groups and why you supported them.
Yeah, I think we're more than happy to connect the applicant to the Fenway Civic Association going forward in this meeting.
Yes, that'd be great.
So
we did
so we can have further conversation.
Did reach out to them. We have their contact information. We reached out to them multiple times, but we'll follow up with them again.
Okay. Yeah, and you can also include me in that. Okay, so moving forward, I'm just trying to browse to see if there are any questions that haven't been addressed yet. So I think we did touch on this, but this one's a little bit more specific. Jay asked, what % will you donate back to West Fenway organizations? Will you be donating exclusively to West Fenway organizations, and what is the dollar amount that you estimate?
We haven't really identified an exact dollar amount, but we do plan on I know to the city of Boston, we have to give at least 3%. So we do have but we want to make additional contributions through our community impact program. And we want to be good partners. Like I said, we reached out to the CDC to try to identify some charities and organizations out there as well. The reentry program is something that sounds like a great program that we want to reach out to, but right now we do not have a dollar amount, but we will make a decent contribution to all those organizations that we feel that are in need in the city in that district.
Okay. She sent a list of questions as well. And Jay, if you do want answers to all of your questions, please follow up with me. I'm more than happy to make sure you get the information that you're looking for. But her last question asks, how are you not going to interfere with other construction going on in that section of Queensberry Street?
I mean, I think that we touched upon a lot of those things. I mean, we're going to try to have, first off, we're going to try to have people do online ordering, so that we don't really anticipate there being a lot of lines on the street. If the other 2 dispensaries are open on Brookline Ave, and then if that includes us, we don't really anticipate there being a lot of congestion and people in lines and all that type of stuff. We do have we have access. We have designated area inside our actual facility where we can actually potentially do queuing. So, I mean, we don't really anticipate having a lot of a lot of lines and the whole hysteria that's really been a common theme from a lot of the residents. We don't really anticipate having those type of lines, and we can keep a good amount of people within the store. Even, I mean, with COVID and without outside of after COVID, you know, so I don't really anticipate us really interfering with traffic. Deliveries will be in the back. We also do have parking on our sides, you know, so if there should be a quick delivery, if someone needs to, for potentially like a handicapped customer, we do have accessibility for those types of things. So we do have enough different ways to mitigate anything that has to do with construction in that area or we shouldn't be any type of hindrance to anyone in that matter.
Okay, thank you. And a few folks have asked if you could elaborate on like your timeline on the opening of the business.
Ideally, I mean, please, my application went in of 2019, around April 2019. So I mean, hopefully we'll get before the board in either hopefully December, at the December meeting, and then at the state level, I'm not sure. Rebecca might have a timeline on that, but I mean, it probably. What would you say, Rebecca?
Yeah, so the timeline is very tough because we have been in the queue with the city for quite some time. We're anticipating that, you know, even passing through the CCC's regulations, it's going to be, you know, 8 to 9 months. And that's, you know, and just to touch base on the construction comment, it's 8 to 9 months out before we even get our license and have the ability to think about opening.
Yeah, and I did write to somebody privately about this, so they will have to, like they said, get the approval from the Boston Cannabis Board, and then they will have to go to the Zoning Board of Appeals. So before that, they really can't open. So moving along, we do have another hand raised, so we're going to go ahead and unmute Mark Yang. Hey, Mark, can you hear us? Hey, Mark, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you. Yep.
Yeah, can you say your name and address for the record and keep your testimony under 2 minutes, please?
Sure, yeah. My name is Mark Yang, living on Park Drive. And first, I'd like to voice my objection to the proposal. I think this area is really dedicated to the residential the areas. It's like we have seen the family living on the street, living in the neighborhood, and in the park. There are a lot of kids, a lot of children. And I really don't think it's like appropriate to have an establishment like this can open in this neighborhood. Second, I will see like the zoning, and I'm not sure it's like if the zoning is the resident areas. I don't know how the things you get first make it approved or started. Other things I really think is like it is a really big park, like 1 block away from that site. I really see a lot of traffic. I really see like the voice my concerns is like people definitely, I mean, just like spread out. No matter how hard you try, it will be impact. It will be people with wandering street, will be smoking in the park. That is just like I think it's going to impact people's like greatly in my neighborhood. That's all my concern.
Thank you, Mark. I'm going to unmute you now.
Thank you for your concerns.
Mark.
Okay. I'm seeing a lot of comments regarding, I guess, the city allowing multiple dispensaries in the neighborhood. I just want to make it very clear the process. We cannot prevent anybody from legally going through a community process of, proposing a dispensary anywhere. They have the legal right to be processed, and that is why we go through this. This is just the first step. As we said, this proposal does not have any approval. So this is just the first step in the process. We just have to, get as much feedback as possible in order to make an advisement going forward when they do have scheduled hearings. But again, we cannot legally prevent anybody from a community process for a proposal. A proposal can literally be located anywhere. Unfortunately, we don't have anything like that.
Oh.
So
we get water though.
Let's see what else we have. Okay, so Tim Horn asked, what does this have to do with zoning? So after a proposal is approved by the Boston Cannabis Board, Tim, they actually do have to go before the Zoning Board of Appeals. Just like any other proposal, they will have variances that will need to be, that they will have to seek approval for. So that is why, in this case, I believe you guys mentioned it's a conditional use.
Yes, it is.
Exactly. So, and in another case, it could be building use, building code, or whatever the case may be. Let's see if we have any other questions. Could we actually take a moment if you guys, I see a lot of raised hands. If you guys don't wish to provide any additional testimony, can you just lower your hands? And if you do, just re-click raise hands feature so that I can monitor that a little bit better. Okay, so we do have a new raised hand. Hey, Khalil, can you hear us? Sorry. Hey, Khalil, I see that your hand is raised. I can tell you there's a lot of background noise. I'm going to try to unmute you again right now. Hey, Khalil, can you hear us?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yeah, it's a little noisy in your background.
All right, I don't mean it to be noisy. You still hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. Can you say your name and address for the record, and then just keep your testimony under 2 minutes, please?
My name is Khalil Allen. I stay in Dorchester. I'm just here to vouch for Damon and his character and how he is. I was around his liquor store when he was there, and I just want to really vouch for him as a businessman and as somebody that is honest to his word and really brings to the community the same thing that he feels in his heart, and that's just love for everybody. And I just want to, just be here to say my part, just try to, make people know the type of business that they're bringing to the neighborhood. It's not some type of business that somebody that doesn't care about everybody. He cares about all people, and he shows his love appropriately. And so, I just wanted to come to say my part.
Okay, thank you so much, Khalil. I'm going to mute you now. Okay, we have another question asked. Hi, Taba. As you said previously, the shop is within 500 feet of the McKinley School, but 1 mile is just above 5,000 feet. How can it be more than a fourth of a mile from the school?
Repeat that again?
So as we previously said, the shop is within 500 feet of the McKinley School, but 1 mile is more than 5,000 feet. How can the distance from your shop and the McKinley School be more than a fourth of a mile from the school?
I think Rebecca answered that we're not within 500 feet.
Okay.
K through 12 school.
Correct. Okay, got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
I
yeah,
can
go ahead.
chime in. I think the 500 feet rule is well short of a quarter of a mile, if that's the question. A quarter of a mile.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's going to be more than 1,000 feet. So if that's just for point of clarity.
Okay, so another question asked by Jay that I don't think has been touched on. Will you commit to hiring West Fenway residents as your employees, including those who are unhoused and who live in nearby West Fenway parks and gardens, as well as paying them living wages that they can afford to live in Boston?
Absolutely. We definitely want to try to provide opportunities for the residents.
I can also chime in with the time that we have to develop more relationships in the community. We would seek to answer so many of these questions and seek to build connections to better understand how we can best connect with the community, with the nonprofits and the folks doing the good work to keep folks healthy. We've been through, just like so many communities around the greater Boston area, we've seen us lose the ability to connect. We've seen gentrification. We've seen the diversity of our community, particularly the economic diversity, go away. And as much as we can support that element of the community, we want to.
Okay, and then we have one more raised hand from Sonia. Hey, Sonia, can you hear us?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Good. Can you just say your name and address for the record, please?
Yep, it's Sonia Bavalia. I work for the Red Sox. I'm also a neighborhood resident on Peterborough Street. I have a couple questions. And first, I just want to say that, we generally support the opportunities for equity applicants and minority-owned businesses in the neighborhood. And we've said that before with the previous equity applicant in the neighborhood. My question is just coming from neutral space, but one is if you have met or spoken with any community representatives from the area colleges yet. And the other was, can you repeat the name of your security consultant that you're working with?
Yes, the security consultant we're working with is Frank Barbour. And in regards to the universities, no, we have not talked to any of the universities at this time yet.
And then I'll also chime in. So Damon and them will also be working with American Alarm, who Rebecca has worked with in the past. And they've helped several cultivation and cannabis retail stores open up.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sonia. Okay, we're going to allow Steve Wolf to provide the last comment of the night. Hey, Steve, can you hear us?
Yes, can you hear me?
We can hear you. Can you say your name and address for the record, please?
Sure. It's Steve Wolf, 11 Park Drive, Boston, 02215. First, I want to tell the team, you guys need to learn that when you say the Fenway, like the South End, that's different from Fenway, which is the ballpark. Those of us who live here are kind of sensitive about that. I want to make 3 quick comments. It sounds to me as if a lot of people who have been commenting do not actually have direct experience with dispensaries. I've been in 4 of them in different states, including Massachusetts. They're all incredibly orderly. They're all incredibly well run. And I think there's kind of a standard business model for managing these things that's developed. And I personally don't see this as an intrusive business in this neighborhood because I've seen how other places are run, including the sort of managing of people outside, either waiting or who just purchased things. You don't see people walking down the street, lighting up a joint. I've never seen anyone walk out of one of these places and immediately consume. That's number 1. Number 2, this is just a quick thing about somebody raised a question about the program, the K Street program. There is in fact a lot of research that shows that marijuana can actually be a useful diversion for people with opioid addiction. I'm not an expert on it, but I have looked this up and seen that several sort of peer-reviewed studies show that it makes a difference. I don't know that that's going to happen here, but I think the concern is very abstract, and obviously if the proponents are going to talk to K Street, that would be extremely helpful. My final comment is this feels like a place where a lot of people at the beginning of this summer were all over the Black Lives Matter movement, and by people I mean white people like me, and everybody wanted to do something. And this is, to me, clearly a place where white people need to sort of step back and say, is this something that I can support because it's an economic empowerment effort? I think we should all be looking at that, those of us who fit that description. And my own feeling is this could be actually a really nice addition to the neighborhood. And I will say that in closing, several people have brought up very specific things about the timing and how the lines are going to be managed. I think if you, the proponent team, were willing to set up an advisory board of neighborhood residents, I think you'd get a lot of good feedback and would help you fine tune where the problems are that'll switch people from being sort of skeptics to believers. So that's my comment.
Great. Well, Steve, we can't thank you enough because it is all true. And it's just nice to be able to people to be able to hear it, not coming from the applicant, that, you know, about lines and et cetera. So thank you for your time this evening and explaining that.
Well, Green Soul Foundation, I appreciate your comments. And with all that's going on in the country, I think that real equity and access to capital that trickles down in the Black community is what is going to really push change, right? And this is an opportunity to do it and change people's lives at the same time. So thank you for your comments.
Yeah, I want to thank you as well. Thank everybody tonight for your questions and your comments and concerns. You know, as folks of color growing up in this city and with many other friends and colleagues, we've confronted, you know, a lot of adversity. You know, we've confronted a lot of questions, and we're willing to answer as many as we can. We know all about, you know, people being asked what they're smoking and being, you know, put in cars and so forth. So we want to make sure folks are abiding by laws. We want to be good neighbors, and we want to do all that we can to support your community. So again, appreciate all of the input tonight.
Yes, and with that being said, it is now 8:02, so we're actually going to adjourn the meeting. I know there are a bunch of comments and questions that we were not unfortunately able to get to. So if you guys, if the applicant wants to say any other closing remarks, you are more than welcome to now, and then we will adjourn.
I just want to thank everyone for taking the time. We definitely take everyone's comments into consideration. And as stated before, we definitely want to try to build a relationship where we can work with the community.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Awesome. Awesome.
And
thank you
you, Denise, for all of your help.
Yes, of course, it's my pleasure. So I have my email here on the screen. If you guys want to take a moment to note that, please feel free to follow up with me, and I know the applicant will be more than happy to connect with you and answer any outstanding questions or concerns that you may have. Again, the community process is ongoing. There have been no decisions made. They do not have a hearing date yet before the Boston Cannabis Board, so please feel free to engage in the community process if you so wish. The process will be open again until first before the Boston Cannabis Hearing Board, and then there will be another opportunity to engage in the process before the zoning board. Okay? With that being said, thank you everyone for participating this evening, and you all have a good night. Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good job.